Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special edition of the Wildman Revolution podcast. The whole premise of the Wildman Revolution podcast is to highlight what men are doing that is amazing in the world, but I thought I'd mix it up this week. I have had this plan for a while. I feel it's perfect timing to have my following guest on, my beautiful, amazing queen, my wife. As just recently we have been married, hence the little break from the podcast. But I thought it'd be a really, really powerful podcast to have you on, Chetanya, Mrs. Mac. to give some of your own insights, highlight what good you're doing in the world, but again, give some insights of what you see as a perspective for with me, how I show up in the world and what I'm doing, working with men and women alike, but also what you see for men and women in the world at the moment too, and what you feel are some of the solutions that not only you provide, but other people are doing, and what humans are doing good as well. But yeah. I always start, now we've had a little chat before this, but we generally roll random anyway. But I have a question I ask all the guests. When you hear Wildman Revolution, what comes up for you? What does that bring up for you, or what may that mean?
Yeah, it's a good question. I feel like it's a revolution of men coming back to their natural state. So getting rid of all the conditioning and coming back to who they truly are as men. And it's funny because even just this morning, probably divine timing, like I was walking to the gym and I overheard this like older guy speaking, and he was saying, you know, it's not in my usual my character to, like, you know, speak up and be assertive. And then he said, and that's 25 years together. So I'm assuming he's probably talking about like standing up to his wife or something. And like, that's what I see, you know, the work that you're doing and Wildman Revolution as like men, for it being okay for men to be men again, but in a really healthy, integrated way where masculine, feminine energy is integrated and there's wholeness. Yeah.
I like that. You set a standard for the men who I interview going forward now with that response. That's awesome. And like I mentioned to top off the podcast, we just got married. How was that for you? It was awesome for me. Like we
I hope it was awesome for you.
It was really, really awesome. And it is part of my intention, what I help people with and everything too, but you can have your fun. This is my podcast. But pre-warning, listeners, if you're new to Chi and I, we do take the piss and we do laugh a lot and we do joke a lot. It's just normal. It's the way we live our life. Yeah. So if there's tangents and interruptions where we're giggling at each other, just go with it.
Just deal with it.
Or deal with it. But anyway, like, I'm all about getting my kingdom in order and helping others get their kingdom in order, meaning their environment, not just the roof that they have over their head and their house they live in, but their environment where they spend their time, how they live their life through their values and all that sort of thing, the relationships they have. This was a key thing for me, I feel, to basically add another integration to sort of practice what I preach. Mm-hmm. Although we didn't have a traditional ceremony and all that sort of thing, we've gone our own path and trusted in our own way. But the ceremony itself and the commitment from me to you was just another integration I see for me and my kingdom. To have my queen by my side, which you always have been, but I think now to be able to show that to the world, because we do a lot publicly and openly, we do share a lot of our life there. But I felt that was an integration piece for me, even though I've seen it all along that you are my queen, but now it really like was another level to it. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing I got from it. I even had a comment from my video editor, Michael, you're a legend. He's like, awesome celebration or awesome ceremony equals kingdom in order or something like that, because that's what it is, kingdom in order, and we're always growing. But yeah, let me know for you, what has the last few weeks or the ceremony or anything sort of meant for you, and how you feel with about in your queendom maybe, or being my queen, or me being your king, or however you see it.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I've had a lot of, you know, people like friends of ours, you know, check in and kind of jokingly being like, oh, how's married life going? And you know, and my first response is, well, it's kind of the same as non-married life. Because, you know, we've been together for 5 years and our relationship is really rock solid. You know, we've been together through the ups and downs and the tears and the laughter and everything in between. But so there's kind of one aspect where it's like, well, nothing's changed. We're still, you know, we're us. But then it's also like simultaneously so much has shifted. Like we've had massive, massive shifts the last few weeks, and like especially that week of the wedding. So I mean, wow, yeah. I feel like it was really us planting like the flag in our life and kind of, let's say, our metaphorical, yeah, if you want to call it kingdom, but like our space and our world, and us being really in the center of that and claiming that.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a lot of you know, there's so much conditioning in like everywhere, movies, TV programs around like, when you get married,
family,
you know, you lose your freedom, you lose blah, 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 blah. You're not ever going to have sex again. You know, the love's going to, like, there's so much absolute bullshit conditioning around marriage. And the interesting thing that I felt is that when we stood there and declared our commitment to each other, that was like the most freeing thing. I feel that one of the most freeing things I've ever done.
Yeah.
Because it was like, this is who I am. This is who you are. This is who we are in our divine union relationship.
Yeah.
I've got your back. You've got my back. Let's fucking do this. Let's rock.
Yeah.
Let's rock this.
Like you say, it's not something we needed to do to prove that to each other or anything, but something magical happens when you really do stand there, full vulnerability and commit, being witnessed by not only friends and family and all that, but the universe, and you really declare it out there. And that's what it felt for me. It was really, really powerful. And it's so funny you said like nothing's changed, but oh my God, we've had so many shifts. What I believe is shifted, and I always talk about this, the biggest change can happen on an identity level. It's not just what you believe, it's what you believe about yourself. And when you declare these things out loud to each other, to each other's soul, bear witness towards, like, that's it. When you said plant your flag in there, put a ring on it. Either way, well, for you or for me, it was like, it was a big identity shift. Not that it wasn't stuff we were aware of, it was like that integration. It's like, well, yeah, we're fucking owning this now. If you guys want to check out my commitments, I was straight to socials, of course, and shared it. Then I had a bit of a break from there, and I got all the women of the world going, oh my God, that brought a tear to my eye, and all this sort of stuff. And most of the men are like, whoa, what the fuck? Because they don't comment. Good on you, couple of men who did out of the hundreds of women. But at the same time, I wanted to add to that energy of my commitment and be witnessed in that as much as I could, because I understand the power in that. And while I'm on my socials, guys, if you haven't checked it out, down the links down below, my Telegram channel, super intimate group where I get in there and I answer personal questions straight up. Not heaps of numbers in there, so I can keep it intimate. Facebook, Insta, and all that. We'll get to your stuff soon. My podcast and all other podcast platforms. The wedding itself, the last morning was a highlight for me. After the ceremony and all that, we had like a circle and gathering, and it's like we just finished a bloody retreat. Now, we've run a bunch of retreats before in the past and everything, and it was everyone sharing breakthroughs. And I was like, of course, because it even came through in the speeches and what everyone was saying across the whole weekend, because we just didn't have an afternoon and a reception. We had a whole weekend sort of thing, from Friday night through to Sunday. And it came through a lot. It's like when you're around Steve and Chi, healing happens. So whether it's we're going through stuff and they're bearing witness to it, or the people who come into our environment, it brings up stuff. But that was evident as a positive to people were sharing that. And the circle on the last day was, I think, more evidence to that, where everyone we're like, well, what were you getting out of the wedding? What was your favorite part? Everyone's sharing breakthroughs. And I was like, and people were crying and all this. And it was like, for us, the way we set it up intentionally, it was like, this is an event. Now, yeah, we want to celebrate our love and all that sort of stuff. But at the same time, the people who come they're our tribe, they're our community. And one of our core values is like growth, evolution. So of course, all the people there are like into that stuff. And when it came to get vulnerable, that was one of my favorite moments of the weekend.
Yeah. And I think because that's just who we are, like this is our life, as we're so committed to, you know, individually and in our relationship, we're so committed to our personal growth and expansion, and always growing and evolving, shifting, transforming. And so anyone, you know, when we're together and of course, like a wedding is celebrating love, and love is the most powerful force in anything in existence. So of course, when we attracted all these people, it was like it was just really beautiful. What it really was everyone was so in their heart, like by the end of that weekend.
Yeah, I know whose fault that was too. I'm going to say that, who's to blame. She sung me an amazing song, which she learned only a few weeks before, which was really, really powerful for me. And that was more of a commitment and vulnerability from yourself. But well, everyone witnessed, there was so much that came back to me, and feedback was like, oh, everyone came into their heart and everyone was crying and so open. And that was really powerful for me, because my significance was like, fuck yeah.
Yeah, because it was a song that I sung for you.
Yeah.
But you had the vow, like your vows got everyone, and then my song like got everyone.
Well, it's sort of like the way I seen it was my masculine sort of energy penetration. There you go. I'm going to pierce the heart, and then you dropped everyone deeper into it. Again, we know what we're doing when we're running events. Even though there was vulnerable moments, maybe some of it was intentional. But anyway, it was amazing, and we could talk about this for 2 hours, and we've given ourselves a time limit because we haven't done this in a while. Like I'm glad that you said yes to be my guest on the podcast, because not only do we work well together, but there are probably more women at the moment that listen to this podcast and tune into the podcast that are going to take a lot from this as well. There will be more men there. The men are stepping up, but I know a lot of men may be scared of the word commitment or committing and being vulnerable and being witnessed in it because of whatever in the past. But I know the power of it from the experiences I've had, and I think
even that in itself is a great topic. Like this whole the meaning or association to commitment, because commitment is, I mean, I feel it's a masculine energy, like
100%.
Committing to something,
intention.
Deciding on something, that's a masculine energy.
And doing the do.
So and looping it back to like what I mentioned before around, there's so much conditioning around when we commit to something, we lose our freedom. But what if we actually rewire our association to commitment and actually believe that, hold on, when I commit to something that is in my highest alignment, that I'm committing to with all of my heart, what if it actually is the ultimate freedom? You know, it's freedom from
a simple but a really deep reframe.
Yeah.
It's not if you really sit with it.
Yeah, really. I mean, if you think about, you know, what I feel with where I am in my life right now, I'm so certain in myself, in our relationship, in, you know, our family unit, where we live, our community, like everything, the work that I'm doing, that we're doing. And, you know, that's because I committed to all of those things. You know, another great example of this is when in 2018, when Steve and I first, we had a joint coaching and business.
For someone who's really shit with numbers, you tend to remember dates when we did shit really well.
That's the feminine remembering the details. Yeah, in 2018, so we started earning really good money. And so we thought, well, freedom, like let's pack everything. We put everything into storage. And we're like, let's go live in Bali and just like live out of our suitcases and be location free, right? And we did that, and we lived in Bali, like in beautiful villas, and we had like, let's call them servants, basically, like, you know, that's what they were. and we're living the life kind of thing. And then we'd travel to Melbourne, New Zealand, like on social media, it was like, you know, everyone was like, oh my God, like living the dream. And sure, it was fun, you know, because
we got a lot out of it. Yeah.
That it was the novelty for the first few months. But after the first few months, you start realizing it's a lot of time in airports, Ubers,
planes,
not having your own fucking pillow, you know, eating out at restaurants, not eating home cooked food. There's so much, a lot of time on planes. And we started realizing actually this doesn't align with our values.
Especially freedom, which is interesting.
No. And but for so many, like, people would think, well, that's freedom. But what we've found is, like, now we've committed. We did a 12-month lease on the house we're in now. We're probably going to do another one. That is a commitment to being in one place. And I feel so much freer being here because I'm free of all the fucking, you know, where are we going to next?
Which is fascinating because she's variety driven.
Oh my God.
But it was really, was not grounded. We were not grounded there for a while.
No.
But it is an interesting one on commitment. And just to brush back to the wedding for a sec, what we decided to do and committed to, and like the non-traditional, even though our friends and everything and all the lead up and all that, they were sort of taking the piss because we were pretty hard to deal with because we did not want, we weren't getting married legally in a fictitious system. We had amazing friends. Check out the very first podcast with my amazing friend, Aaron Baldock, my brother. Him and his beautiful Queen Greer held the ceremony. They were absolutely phenomenal, but we got to decide on that. We got to choose every part and allow them to be in their genius. So for the wedding and everything like that, the commitment was to each other. The commitment was in divine union. It wasn't a commitment to, we've got to sign a bit of paper. It wasn't a commitment to, oh my God, now we've got to think about what if something goes wrong. And no. And I know that a lot of you out there that may have been through broken marriages or maybe not wanting to get into relationships again or been through hard relationships that are broken down because of the next level of some sort of commitment. You get to choose, is what I'm saying here. You get to decide what you commit to. And when you commit to something like this, how can it not be free? I think, again, reframing that or how you see freedom. A lot of people out there, you've got your experiences and your model of the world from whatever's happened, whether it's in your lifetime or your families or whatever you've heard, society or anything like that. If you're not willing to go, okay, I can actually do things my way, you're going to be stuck. You're going to be trapped. It's not going to feel free in commitment. Commitment's going to be this thing that's like, oh my God, I've got to commit to this. Oh, fear, panic, anxiety. I don't know. So you hold yourself back. And I just want to see more people really step into something where they get to choose everything. Like, I think that's what it is.
Yeah. And remembering that, like, freedom and like wealth, let's say, truly is actually just living your values, you know, and when we live our values, we're happy. So I know, like, for me in my life right now, I'm not a millionaire, and yet I feel very wealthy because my highest value is connection, love and connection. And every day I have multiple people that I see that I say, I love you too. You know, we have such an epic community that we have attracted into us because of our commitment and being grounded in where we are. We've attracted this incredible community to us. You know, I value personal growth. I'm growing. You know, I value, what else do I value?
This is fascinating. Rich experiences.
Rich experiences, yeah. So much of it, though, like, really my number one value is love and connection. And so because I'm living all of my values, I feel very wealthy. Yeah. You know, and I compare that to, you know, 2018, early 2019, when we were doing really well in our business. So we had, like, you know, the monetary success. You know, and we're still doing well now, but what I'm saying is we had that then, but we didn't have our tribe. Like, we didn't
feel whole, complete, not from something outside of ourselves.
Yeah, I didn't have the circle of friends that I wanted. Yeah. And so like we weren't actually living all of our values. And I feel like right now I'm coming out of a 3 to 4 year dark night of the soul, and it feels amazing.
Thank fuck.
But yeah, that was one of the biggest things that I learned from that experience, is that, yeah, wealth is so much more than just money. Of course, money is important and we need money to live our values, right? But that's what it really is. Like true wealth and freedom and happiness just comes from living our values, you know? Yeah.
Awesome. A bit of a segue in there. You talk about connection, like your brand, your mission, your purpose is, or your brand's called Nourish and Connect, yeah, at the moment. Well, that's
that's
an
one of
intention of it.
my program.
Yeah, well, it's a program anyway.
Yeah.
But that is something that with the work you do, and I'd love you to talk a little bit more about that, and with the amazing women that not only you help now, but you have helped, like in the, what would you say, they're high achievers, they are successful, a lot of them are mums, they have a lot on their plate. And what you're amazing at is not only helping them like work through and heal from trauma and everything like that, the way you show up in your life to nourish and connect and so on and so forth, you bring that to them too. And I've witnessed, because a lot of them are close to us, I've witnessed a lot of the women around us really change their lives and be different humans because of what you do. Can you talk more to that for the women out there and men listening to this too? Because the trauma stuff's what I do. I mightn't talk about it on here much. I have some special guests coming really, really soon. But this is important for everyone to understand how powerful and important the trauma work is.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, that definitely does link into
you can give a backstory on yourself too. Some of the things you've gone through, if you feel that's relevant.
Yeah. So yeah, I had a very tumultuous, you could say, childhood. Was sexually abused by my father. Had in my early years a mentally unstable mother. My mother then passed away when I was 15. And so I had a lot of trauma. And I got into the personal development space, or kind of healing space, when I was 21, 22. I first started looking for healing when I was 19. But when I was 21, 22, I was introduced to Louise Hay and Wayne Dyer and Abraham Hicks, law of attraction. And through law of attraction, just from finding those teachings, I actually had some huge shifts in my life. Like I manifested my car, and I started working. I did my training, started working in a private language school as an English teacher. But I was I've always been ambitious. And I think if we are ambitious, but we don't know who we are and what our path is, then we're going to follow the mainstream path. And that's what I did. So, at 22, 23, I found myself, I was engaged and, I had a good job and, was earning back then what I thought was pretty good money. And so, and was just living this normal, like the normal life, going to cafes on the weekends, shopping, 3-day weekends with our friends, double dates, that kind of thing. But 2 years into that, I felt like my soul was dying. And I felt like, is this my life? Like I remember just not being able to sleep at night and just going into the lounge when everyone was asleep and everything was quiet, and there wasn't all the busyness happening, and just being like, is this it? Surely this can't be it after everything I've been through to land here, like in a pretty mediocre life. And not to say that that's, that might be perfect for other people, but it comes back to our values. I wasn't living my values. One of my biggest values is personal growth, and I wasn't growing. I was just, existing and going through the motions. And so I quit my job, moved cities, connected with Steve online. I got into personal development and like full on, like I found oh my God, there's this thing called a life coach, and there's like, mindset work and these online programs you can do. And I was obsessed as soon as I found that. And that was when I was about 24 or 25. And I started working with Steve. A few months after that, I broke off my relationship of 2.5 years because, again, we did not have the same values. So I think you're seeing a theme here. And so much shifted. You know, we started working together in 2016, about May of 2016. By October 2016, I was living in New Zealand at the time, where I'm from. I had sold everything, packed up everything again, moved to Australia.
You can probably join the dots what happened over the following months.
Yeah, we started, within a few months. Like, I was on the Gold Coast for 2.5 months. We were kind of starting to realize that, oh, is there
You're
like,
going to share my version of the story?
is there something,
podcast,
is there something here? Well, that's when we started realizing that, but we were in denial. And then finally I moved up to Cairns where Steve was living. And then within a few weeks we were together. And within 9 months, we were pregnant, and that wasn't planned. But it was definitely.
It was planned, but we manifested it about 3 or 4 years too quick.
Well,
from what we thought at the time, but everything was
from
just
what
perfect.
we thought at the time, but it was definitely what our souls, I think, a higher orchestration was planning.
100%.
Because we really got our shit together. And then I had River, and what I didn't realize, you know, now I know, is that basically all of my trauma came to the surface to be healed. But in all the years of personal development and healing I had done, I'd never actually learned about trauma. And so all the work I had done had been mindset work and like energy healing work, soul work. But I'd never done any of the embodiment somatic work, right? Because trauma lives in our body. And so I had River, we had our son, and 6 months later, I was on antidepressants, as someone who had never even believed in depression. I was just...
That fucked with me, by the way, everyone listening out there. That was malfunctioning me. That was a hard period. It was, because of my beliefs and everything like that. But
it was a very hard, a very, very hard period. And I felt like I was in a dark hole that I could not get out of. And it was around that time that I found Qoya. And for those of you who don't know, Qoya is a movement system that combines dance, sensual movement, and yoga. And it has so many benefits, but what it really did for me was it helped me to open up my body and start releasing the trauma, all the trauma I was carrying, all the suppressed emotion. It allowed me to express my emotions in a healthy way, you know, through catharsis and dance and music and movement.
Catharsis, what's that? It's a fascinating word.
Cathartic, like it's like feeling your emotions and like expressing.
Take note of that one, viewers, listeners.
And it changed so much for me. Finding Qoya, and it allowed me to come back into my feminine as well, because I had been so like just like go. And that's what got me to a point where I was so depleted and burnt out. Like I was completely fucked. And it was because I had a newborn baby and I was trying to operate like I was when I didn't have a baby. I was still just trying to like work and not nourish myself and fill myself back up.
When you're living with a full-time hustler like me, meaning I do, and I go, that probably compounded lots of things, because it was frustrating for me because I didn't understand. She went from this, all right, I want that, or I desire that, I'm going to do the work and I'm going to get it. And she would work and get results and get amazing results. But then, when River came along, I think the lessons were there to be learned for both of us through that period. It was, yeah, it was definitely a real growth period, and what we both experienced, yourself and myself. You can't sort of we couldn't learn any of that in a course. You could say.
No. No. Yeah, but it's made us, it was such a time of, yeah, it was fucking challenging, but you know, it kind of showed one thing, it really showed us how strong our relationship is, like to make it through that together, because it was just like all the fucking triggers, all the trauma just right here on the surface, all the wounds out in the open, into ours interfacing with each other. It was full on. But you know, we always came to, I think our commitment to grow and be self-responsible for what we're experiencing individually, always brings us to growth 100%. in our relationship, and coming to solution and back to, you know, divine union and the highest path.
Well, without going on too much of a tangent, there's something I wanted to bring into the podcast, is like what we learned about each other was how we actually, when we're triggered, or how we need to deal with it in our own ways. I think that's one thing I got from that period too. There's not a one size fits all. And one of the ways I not just deal with triggers, fill my cup, fill my bucket. I need space. I need to be by myself for a bit, whether it's a couple of hours or a week. But I do, because it's a multifaceted thing where I gain many benefits out of it. Just like with you literally live to your cycle, and you live to your cycle, and you have your ways of navigating that, where it actually works really well with me filling my bucket, or me dealing with stuff that I've got to deal with. Like I'll go away either by myself or with River once every 4 to 6 weeks, generally when you're at that time of your cycle, which
pre-menstruation.
Yeah, which works for us. It mightn't work for other people, but because she's got to a point where it's her journey, it's red 10 time, she wants to just go and retreat, do bugger all, which now I'm cool with. I never used to be, I didn't understand it. But now I see how much benefit it gives when you do go to retreat and do have that red 10 time, where I'm not there with my energy, where I'm either frustrated, or I'm wanting to do stuff, or I'm like, I'm wanting to do stuff together, or all these things. And with River, I'm like, okay, this is a cool time to go away. And it has worked so well for us. And I think we needed to go through a lot of that period during when you had River, but after you had River, where you dive deeper into that work, not only for yourself to see what worked better for you as you nourish yourself more and you worked on your trauma.
I basically spent 3 years like doing embodiment practices every day.
Yeah, but not from a hustle place.
Feeling my feelings.
Yeah, exactly. Feeling your feelings. And at the same time, like, this is what I admire about you. You were working with clients, not for the whole period, but you really got into working with clients. And I truly believe the best way to learn something or integrate something, embody something, is to teach it from an embodied place too. But it might be fully integrated with body, but you know it. You're competent, you're confident with it. I reckon that's the best way. So that's what's really admirable about the way you've gone about this as well, because you do work with some pretty impactful women that are making a big difference in this world, that have a lot on their plate.
Yeah, and that was a huge, there's been so many gifts, like, and I feel like everyone really needs to, even as like a culture, we need to really embrace the dark night of the soul, because the dark night of the soul is where you fucking meet yourself, like in your rawest form. Like, it's like you're stripped naked and bare of all the fucking who you thought you were, the conditioning, the beliefs, all the shit that isn't truly you, and you just see yourself there naked and bare as you actually are. And when I met myself, 3-4 years ago, I was a fucking broken little girl, and I had been walking around with this facade of like, I'm confident because I had a hot body, I was achieving, in business, had my relationship, all of my achievements and the external things were giving me this false facade of confidence. But when all of that was stripped away, yeah, it was just, I met my grief, my grief, my trauma, my rage, my anger, everything that was there. So yeah, there's been so many gifts that came from that time. But definitely, I think the reason that I really attracted, you know, women who very successful, you know, in business and finances, money, was because they really resonated with the story I shared about how, you know, I'm sitting there and I've got this business and relationship and money, like a lot of money in my bank account, but feeling fucking miserable on the inside. And the worst thing is that I had everything I'd been working toward that I thought was going to make me happy, only to get there and realize, fuck, I'm not happy because I haven't dealt with this. Because freedom is actually starts in here within ourselves. Yeah, and so I'm so great now. It felt like I was walking through hell sometimes the last 3 years, but I'm so grateful now to look back and yeah, just to just really see the truth of life, what matters and what doesn't.
What's the biggest thing with the trauma work? And we don't have heaps of time to dive deep into it, but what's the biggest shift you notice for yourself in results for you, but for clients and that as well? Because I think this is important for the listeners and the viewers. The biggest thing that's not in the personal development world that you found in the trauma work, you talked about in the body, but what was the thing for you to go, oh my God, this is the work that needs to come to life, not only for me, but for the world? Is there one defining thing or a couple of defining things you could share?
That's a loaded question.
Of course. Answer it how you will, trust.
Yeah, well, I think that, you know, for women, if you're born in a woman's body, at core, we're feminine energy. And so if we spend too much time in masculine energy, that's depleting for us. And spending time in our feminine energy is really nourishing. And the masculine thinks, the feminine feels. And so for so many of us women, you know, and especially if you're like ambitious and you're chasing goals and stuff. So I found for myself, I had been operating from here all the time, just thinking, doing, masculine energy. And that's very much the traditional personal development world, right? But then when I had River and I went to that really dark place and I was trying to go and do my old practices like journaling and my mindset work practices, and it was like, these are not doing fucking anything. They just weren't. And through doing Qoya, it felt like, and actually just fucking feeling what I was actually feeling rather than ignoring what I'm feeling and just being focused on the goal and chasing stuff. It was so nourishing, and it felt real. It just felt so fucking real, and it was refreshing, like for my soul. And it felt like I was coming home to myself. And I think, yeah, with so many of the women I work with now, it's really them coming back into balance, you know, into their feminine. I had one of my best friends and who I've also worked with, she's been my client, Christy. We had a photo shoot a few weeks ago, and she has changed so much in the last 2 years, like in the work she's done with me. So 2 years ago, you know, if you saw, before I like met her properly, because all I'd seen of her was online, I just thought she's just this like hard ass, like business, you know, boss bitch, whatever you want to call her, you know.
She is.
And she is, but that was the only part of her that she was living through, let's say, right? And then we started doing the work together. So, and oh my God, she's like a different person now. And even one of our friends said to us, like, he's like, what have you done with Christy? Like, she used to, when I used to hug her, she would just kind of like just lean in slightly and like pat my back a little bit. Like I couldn't feel anything. And now she like fully like embraces me, and I can like feel her heart, and she's like, oh my God, how are you? You know, and it's like, it's so beautiful to see that when like women just soften and just like, just soften and come into their bodies, and they're feeling and they're intuiting, because that's our natural state as women. And what I was mentioning about the photos was, the photos were a really different side of her. You know, she had her hair like out, and she's wearing these like long dresses, colorful, and she just looked like just so beautiful and like a total goddess. Yeah, and it was just, I'm like, yes, I felt really proud of like my role that I had in supporting that. And yeah, and I think, you know, as a collective, I think this is where the world is headed, you know, because so much of the shit that's been going on in the world is, you know, it's the unhealthy masculine, but it's that total imbalance of patriarchal ways of just everything being in the masculine and unhealthy masculine, and the feminine's really been undervalued. And now it's really coming back, and like women are integrating that, and even men as well.
Yeah, men are there. Men
yeah,
are getting
so
there.
awesome.
Men are getting there. The trauma healing it's like healing is a word that men are like, huh? But they're getting there. They're starting to understand it. But the trauma work is really powerful for men. I know for me, it's been like exceptional and continues to be, because there's always stuff. I'm not saying there's always going to be stuff, but there's always stuff that comes up, and generally, it's, for me, it plays out in the body, and straight away it's like, well, that's trauma. Like it's a sign, and the more I work on my body, my health, and the connection to that, and the connection to my intuition, the signs I get from the body, it's like I'm that in tune with my body. I'm like, oh, I've got to work on something, even if I'm not in my mind making sense of anything, or I'm still got energy. There's something I can feel, and then I'm like, all right, I'll get to moving that, and I've got my practices and processes and whatever I go through, or talk to about that, and the same. Let's shift gears.
I'm thirsty.
That's good.
I'll wait.
We've got a few minutes left. That's why we want to shift gears, because we could keep going into this, and may have to get you back in the future, especially about the trauma work. I think it's really, really powerful.
Yeah, it's such a I think we could do.
I told her I was going to shift gears, and I was taking over, and she takes the mic back.
Well, you could really do a whole episode just on, you know, like what is trauma, what even is trauma, what, you know, just everything about trauma, because there's so much that people don't understand.
Really, really what the world needs more than ever right now, with all the happenings going on. So many people have been caught in the trauma loop, you could say, from the external stuff. It's bringing up stuff within people, and they're just going, what's that triggered, not really getting to the deeper work. Basically,
unresolved trauma is like the biggest, it's like the number one cause of human suffering. Like,
yes. And for those who listen to all the other podcasts and know how I roll and stuff like that, the elites, or whoever you want to call them, they know this. That's why they perpetuate these things around the world constantly. That's why it's so easy to bring up division. That's why it's so easy for them to get everyone triggered for different, whatever you value differently too. It's usually on value judgments or your traumas, and they create traumatic experiences around the world too. Like, that's why they do it. They're always, the news is there because it's constantly keeping in people triggering their traumas or bringing them up unconsciously. Yeah, that's a tangent. I just get excited when that comes in. But anyway, to shift gears.
Yes, okay.
What's it like living with this amazing man here?
Jesus Christ.
No, okay. Well, that comes from, yes, I laugh and giggle. It's from a significance place, but at the same time too, you've got a different perspective on how I do things and go about things, and you see what I do. But for the women and the men out there, like, some of the shit I do is probably weird and it's really unique. And I know you've taken a long time to understand why I do certain things. One example, why the fuck do I go to the middle of buttfuck nowhere and drive for 20 hours to go fishing or hiking? Why do I do that? You get that now. But what are some other things you see from me that maybe you could share that add some value to people out there?
That's another loaded question.
Well, it gives you an open, you can say whatever you want, really.
Well, it's funny because in many ways we're so different, but also there's a lot of ways in which we're very similar. So, I mean, first thing I would say is your commitment to your practices, which is something we're both like really devoted to. So you're, getting into your body, calming your nervous system as a priority at the beginning of the day. Your commitment to your health, so like your training, eating well, fasting, all of that.
You don't have to say all nice things either. I'm cool for, because my head is like growing. You can see this if you're watching the visuals on YouTube, guys.
Yeah.
But it's cool if you've only got nice things to say. I'm down with that.
Well, for adding value, yeah, and you're just turned 44, and
that's the other thing. Not only have we been married in the last few weeks, I had an amazing birthday. I really needed a break from humans. I needed one of my trips to the hills, which I ended up having last week. And here we have 20 odd humans around a week after the wedding celebrating my birthday, which was amazing, by the way. I don't feel 44. No.
Well, yeah, your commitment
anyway.
to your health, like for, your age, and you're 44. And obviously I'm 30, there's a 13, I'm 31 this year, 13 and a half year age difference between us. But yeah, I'm very mature and you're and you're very fit and healthy and young at heart. So it really
I don't think them two go together. But I'll go with it.
But it does.
Yeah.
You're looking great for a 44-year-old.
And I think that it does actually answer my question, even though it was a long-winded question because I really want men and women both to understand out there that there's so many things that we do in our life to, I don't know, like to be able to not just do what we do, to be able to be happy, to be able to have an amazing relationship, to be able to help other people, to be able to have an amazing son, to do great things. The key is, like for us, it's like our disciplines and everything like that without being rigid. And I see that from Chi as well. Although she generally, getting better at this, gets up a lot later than I do, but you go to bed later than I do, but your key is practices, getting into your body. And one of the things that we do is we understand the importance of integrity, practicing what we preach, because we work with people, we help people, we speak our truth in the world too, and being congruent with that. And the only way we can be congruent with that is like to be disciplined, not only with our practices, with our work. And yeah. And
I think that's such a, there's a lot of things that make our relationship really work, really harmonious and balanced. But I think that's really one of them, is because both of us individually, we make sure that we know ourselves. I think that's so important. So I have my space when I bleed every month, and that's really important for period downloads and all the things.
We
were just talking about that yesterday.
Blood loads.
Period loads.
Man, you're probably going, what the?
So Steve knows my cycle, but that's because I've educated, him around it.
And I've been open to it because it's made an astonishing difference to our lives, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, because I think this is a huge thing, issue in relationships, is like this thing of we expect our partner to be a mind reader. Like, why can't he just know to do that? Or da-da-da. That's codependence. That's not a healthy relationship. A healthy relationship, and why ours really works, is because I am responsible for getting to know myself, and then I communicate that with Steve, and vice versa. You know yourself. And so, I know, and I've communicated, okay, I need time. Like when I'm bleeding, I need my space. And just so you know, the couple days before I'm bleeding, I'm probably going to be a bit of a bitch. So like, just FYI, because of what my hormones are doing. And I also know for Steve,
if I haven't had a break for a bit, I become a bitch.
Yeah, sometimes I use a C word, but I know if Steve's being an a-hole, I'm like, you need to go and do your little 2-night, 3-night camping trip. So I have my time when I bleed, and Steve has his time every 4 to 6 weeks. He'll go away, go camping by himself, and that's his space. So we are so grounded in who we are as individuals that when we come together, you know, I'm not saying, Steve, you're responsible for my happiness and vice versa. We're responsible for our own happiness, and our relationship is an amplification of our own inner happiness that we both have within us. So this bringing together just amplifies that.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's not all unicorns and rainbows either, because and this is where I feel a lot of people break down at the part where it comes to the communication part. If either you're triggered or I'm triggered and we've got stuff going on and we're not fully communicating something because we might be ashamed of what we're processing, or there might be some guilt, or we might be like, oh no, you've been working really hard, or I don't want to, whatever it is. If that resistance comes through in the communication, and the communication generally doesn't sort of land, and we'll keep going about our business and stuff will build up, and we will get to a point where it's like, holy shit, actually fucking go on your break, or we would then assert what it is. Yeah. What I'm attempting to say out here, it's in the communication of what's going on too. And the only way you can get better at the communication, especially in a relationship, is what you said. Get to know yourself better. Because when you're communicating your truth and you're clear on that, that is felt by the other person, and it's got more chance of being understood. Now, without that understanding, you're like, what the fuck is she on about? Or what the fuck is he talking about? And stop pointing your shit at me or whatever. There's that breakdown in communication. That stuff will linger. And you're like, oh, all things heal or go away with time. It's the fucking opposite. It's avoidance. And that probably interlinks with like one of the many, you know, false beliefs around relationships, is that, you know, as the time goes on, the love fades, or the passion fades, or, you know, you stop having sex or whatever. We have found the complete opposite to be true, actually. I think sex only gets better, and we only love each other more, and we keep growing together, you know, individually and as a couple, because there's nothing that bottles up. You know, it's always, we have clear, transparent communication. It's not always perfect, but we always come to a resolution, and we move forward and grow. 100%. And it makes our relationship better. Just makes it better. And like the going away and everything is never from escapism from the trigger. It's never from our practices, and that are not about avoiding each other. We need our own time because we don't want to deal with this. It's the opposite. It's like, oh shit, I'm responsible for this. Or I'm clearly projecting, or upset, or angry, or happy or excited. It doesn't matter. There's emotion there that I need to feel my way through and to work with, and it's always coming back for resolution. So I'm gonna feel, if I can, I'm gonna feel this, you know, anger or sadness in my practice, or maybe with my healer or with a friend, so that I'm not bringing it into the relationship and projecting it onto Steve, if it has nothing to do with Steve. And the cool thing about that too, and this is really interesting, I am conscious at the time, but this is really powerful, I think. The other interesting thing is what you say about, I just lost my train of thought. No, when we've got the trigger, like I say, you are going to get the signs when you project that trigger. When I know me, I'm a fiery bastard, and I know this, but my fire is like my power as well. But I know when I've been bottling up or avoiding it or suppressing it or anything like that, or being ashamed to say what I need to say, when it comes out, it's full of fire and anger, and it's not nice, but it's another sign for me to go, oh, wow. And I'm grateful that I have a queen like you who's able to handle that too and understand it's not about you. Now that's taken a lot of work too, and vice versa for me. Now we have an amazing incident that came up at the wedding in one of the speeches, where there was this unassuming stroller flung through the air at poor old Steve over here this time. And it was at a time in our relationship we were moving, and we did have some challenges we were working through. Stressful time. But this thing hit me, and I was looking at her like losing her brain at me, and I was standing there going, what the fuck's going on? I was not triggered. I was a bit hurt. I was actually a little bit scared. there was nothing within me to go, this is because of me, or this is about me. And that was a really, it was a really hardcore way for me, an example for me to go, okay, that's good awareness. And it took a bit, but she took total responsibility for that deep rage from the trauma work you were working through, from everything that was coming up. And I think that's a thing missing in a lot of relationships too.
Yeah.
It's thrown about like, oh, holding space in a fluffy kind of way. Holding space is what I just mentioned. If you're able to be witness and just stand grounded when your partner, your wife, your husband is really in their stuff without wanting to coach them through it. That's been a growth thing for us too, without wanting to fix them, without wanting to be the one that saves or rescues them in it. I see that so much in relationships, and it comes back to your stuff. If you're responsible for that, if you can go, okay, this is me. Even sometimes we can't be, like when you're emotional, sometimes stuff comes out. When I'm emotional, stuff comes out. The head gets involved, thoughts and words and stuff come out, and it's not the truth, it's distorted. But when you come back to, okay, and do the work around it, then you can come back to getting that resolution.
Yeah. And that was like, yeah, and that was something that was, and it's only happened once, by the way, in our 5-year relationship.
I reckon it's funny as fuck. Well, I'm proud of it. No, if it was something that I'd done, I probably wouldn't talk about it, because I would probably hold shame. I would probably hold guilt, and
it was triggered by something you had done, but it wasn't.
Yeah, but it wasn't an intentional thing of mine.
Can we give the example of what it was?
I don't even know. I don't care.
Well, it was when I
do care.
When I had River, and it was about like 3 or 4 weeks after I had River, and I think both me and you didn't realize how bad I actually was, like unhealthy in every way I was at that point. And so Steve went to a retreat in Costa Rica.
As you do.
And then about a year after, or a year and a half after, which was when that happened, it was bringing up my abandonment trauma from my mum. My mum used to like run off when I was like 5 or 6 years old and just like leave, and I didn't know when she'd come back. So that's very traumatic for a young child. And so it was my abandonment trauma from my mum, and Steve doing that. And then I expressed that to him and he wouldn't acknowledge it, then brought up this deep rage, which was from that trauma. And then I just completely, it's probably the angriest I think I've ever been in my life. I just saw
all I can say to that is you're welcome.
And yeah. So I think that's a great example though of like, you know, like that being expressed. And this was at a very stressful time in our lives. Like we had moved from Cairns.
The Rona had just dropped. We couldn't run events and all that rubbish that was going on. So there was a lot of challenges at that time. I didn't have the support network that I have now. But the point is, like, you know, I was able to express that, but then also come back to realizing that when I actually felt my way through that it wasn't just what Steve had done. It was, you know, the fact that my mum ran off and left me when I was a little girl. And that's like, and I think that's such a, when we're in the trigger, it's so real. It's so easy to be like, this anger and how I'm feeling is because of you doing this. Yeah.
If we don't actually take the time to go deeper and feel into what it truly is and get to the root of what it actually is. And that's really what self-responsibility
100%
in relating looks like.
Yeah, I did learn a lot about that then, because for me, like growth, number one, it was a big transition for me, like really coming into more valuing family, understanding that what the trauma process you were going through, and led me to a lot of my own deeper work as well. So there was many gifts in that. And what you just mentioned is a great point there, why a lot of people, I see a lot of anger in the world right now, and people are angry at politicians and they did this and they did that. It's generally nothing to do with them motherfuckers.
They're usually triggering your mummy and daddy wounds.
100%. 100%. And it sort of frustrates me a lot when you do what we do and we put out content and like that people are so caught up because of their emotions and their triggers, and that must be about them, this or that. And that's a message for everyone out there.
Even I think we got caught up, like in 2020, we got caught up in that. I got caught up in
pedophile
that.
stuff and all that. It brings up emotion, but it's generally not about that external thing. It's just whatever's been reflected in that moment. And this is a key thing. Use that energy or that trigger and go, okay, get curious. Where is this really coming from? Like where, and if you start to investigate that, you're going to find that you're probably going to start to switch off from all these fucking movie actors, players out there that are bringing this shit up. And when you go on that journey, you go back to the true freedom and things like that. The freedom movement. Fucking nothing about freedom at the moment is about getting caught up in information, because people are so triggered all the time and so fucking angry. True freedom comes from freeing yourself within, freeing yourself, working on the traumas, working on the stuff, investigating the triggers, getting support.
Basically, if you're walking around with all of these open wounds, emotional trauma wounds inside you that you're not aware of, maybe you are aware, then you are not in your power, because you're susceptible to anything that happens externally, touching those wounds, rubbing salt in them, and you reacting and getting triggered and getting stuck in these trauma loops. That's what it is. So if you want to be in your power, and like you got to come in here and do the healing work. And I would say start with finding some really great embodiment practices and get support. Like, there's so many amazing coaches, healers, therapists out there. Find the support, do your healing work, come back to your power, and then nothing externally can have power. And
then if you want to make a difference externally, which so many people do, you're in your power. The words you say, the actions you take, they will be felt, and all these external things will fucking quiver in their boots. I promise you. That's been one of the biggest differences I've had in my life. The impact I made now compared to what I used to when I was so focused on all these things that were triggering me. I've got to talk to that. I've got to have an opinion on that. I've got to try and fix that. Now doing the work I do, I'm making far more of an impact right now, because I'm constantly focused on being in my power here, first and foremost, here with River, my community, and everything from there, not the other way around. So,
it is walking around and like not healing your traumas is basically allowing yourself to be like a puppet on a string, like literally. It really is. So
I reckon this is
heal by traumas. Number one advice.
Awesome. This is a question I generally ask all the men, and if you've got this far in the podcast, clearly my queen is not a man. I don't give a fuck about all the gender fucking stuff that's going on right now. Clearly. She's added some amazing value today. Thank you, my queen. But I do ask the guests a question at the end. It's another random question.
Oh my God, what?
Oh, this is so cool.
We're already married.
Where do you see the world in 12 months? And what role do you see yourself playing in the world 12 months from now?
Ooh, okay. Where do I see the world in 12 months? I don't know. I have not thought about that question.
Yeah, oh cool. Shift to your role in the world in 12 months.
Yeah. I think the role that I am playing and that I'm here to play is helping to bring humanity into a culture of empathy, compassion, and presence, which is going to lead to a culture which is free of trauma and suffering.
Awesome. Powerful.
Yeah.
And if you had one message to give the people of the world out there that you're here to help, what would that be right now?
Heal your fucking traumas.
I like that. It's good.
Dive into the dark night of the soul, because that's where the realness happens.
100%.
And come out the other side into who you really are.
Thank you so much. Where can the listeners, viewers find you?
Yeah, on Instagram and Facebook. So on Instagram, I'm yet to update my name on socials. We've got to get the numerology right first.
That's why I've got an X in my name, by the way, for all of you that are wondering. What does the X stand for?
Yeah. So on Instagram, I'm Chetanya Haggard. Depending on when you're watching this, it may be I am taking on McNamara as my last name. And
or is it one of our friends called it Qigong?
Yeah, our friend has
all her links will be down below.
So.
All her links will be down there. Are you running anything at the moment?
Am I running anything at the moment? I have a retreat that I'm running with my two close friends, Christy and Sarah, at the end of October here in northern New South Wales. I have my private coaching, which is always my private coaching and therapy, which includes the embodiment work. I have my program Nourish and Connect you mentioned, which is if you're wanting to have some really powerful practices at your fingertips for you to get into your body, come back to yourself, ground. Nourish and Connect is an amazing library of practices that you can plug into anytime, anywhere, as long as you have internet.
Awesome. I'll drop all the links for all that sort of stuff down below, plus my own socials, where you can, if you've watched this on YouTube, where you can listen to this again and again and check out all the other podcasts on Spotify and iTunes, or you're listening in, the YouTube link will be down below as well. Still have a bunch of free t-shirts to give away if you leave an amazing comment. Of course, being congruent and integral and speaking your truth. I don't want any bullshit comments just to get a t-shirt, even though they're cool. I still have a bunch left. And look, yeah, check out all the other podcasts leading to this as well. There's amazing guests on there. The podcast interviews are not just designed to be in the moment to listen to once. They're to go back to, because the guests, just like my beautiful Queen Chetanya today, have so much to offer. There are so many nuggets in there. So please go and check it out and listen again and again, and have amazing guests coming. Have some very influential men on the podcast in the coming weeks. That's enough of the Queen energy for a while on the podcast. Thank you very much for being on, and see you all on the next one, guys. Bye.